This is my second video covering my modernized recreation of this 18th century gown. In the first video, I analyzed the extant piece based off of the museum photos, and I showed the entire patterning process from scratch to fit my measurements. And now that the pattern is prepared, I'm ready to cut it out and start sewing. I recreated the fabric print for this dress last summer when I designed a modernized 18th century capsule wardrobe. This particular print is super easy to recreate because of the high-definition photos the museum has posted. Other designers and even IKEA have already done this exact print. However, I like recreating fabric prints, and I didn't want it on plain white like the other recreations I've seen. I really love the faded look of the surviving garment. I went down a bunny trail with the lovely folks on Instagram who all voted and sent suggestions, and I ended up expanding the design into a full palette of 12 color variations. These are all published to Spoonflower and a smaller site, My Fabric Designs. You can find both linked below. The fabric I'm using for this dress is the tan background, and I printed it to My Fabric Designs Organic Cotton Sateen, which is such a lightweight, beautiful, flowing fabric. It is my new favorite custom fabric base to work with. However, I do want to note that they currently do not offer swatches of this fabric, and since I only needed 2 yards, I didn't feel like buying a whole yard as a sample. The resulting fabric is much lighter than it appeared on screen, which isn't a bad thing in this case. It toned the tan background into a nice ivory. However, I am concerned with how the darker designs, such as red or teal, would turn out on cotton sateen, and at this time I haven't been able to print any myself and check. I am currently working on a whole video just on the subject of custom printed fabric, so if you're interested in that subject, stay tuned. Custom printed fabric is quite pricey, but the fabric I chose is 56 inches wide, so I only printed 2 yards. I was able to get away with it, but it was tight, and I had to choose between skimping on the sleeves or skimping on the skirt. I've decided that making an 18th century dress from 2 yards of fabric can be done, but I don't really recommend it. The other materials I'll be using to make this dress are a cotton linen blend, which will be used for the interlining. Although I'm patterning the dress to be worn over stays, the cotton sateen is ultra fine, so I think it'll need an interlining to keep its shape. The lining layer will be a fine cotton lawn. I've been doing a lot of historical sewing lately and experimenting with historical methods. I want to find a good balance for my purposes, incorporating both historical and modern techniques. For this project, I'm going to experiment with the pendulum swing in the opposite direction. I want to sew it with as many modern techniques as possible to see if I can finish the project quickly, but still come up with a result that I am satisfied with. So let's get to sewing. All I'm saying is that the best possible way to start your day is when you wake up and you already have your new project and your new pattern all finished and you have everything cut out and you've already even done your preliminary basting and pad stitching and you're just ready to sew. Like, I woke up like no alarm, before 7, I am ready to go. Okay, these seams are ready to stitch, but one thing I'm going to do that'll save time later is as I'm sewing the seam, I'm going to embed right about here a length of cotton tape, and then I'm going to do that on each side so that when I come back later and I sew that casing channel, this will already be sewn in place. I'll just have to tuck it out of the way as I'm stitching along. Okay, only a minor problem. I kind of estimated the edge of the print and the seam allowance wrong when I was cutting it out, so there's a bit of white showing. So I'm just going to bring it in another 1/4 of an inch or so. If I have to take a 1/4 of an inch out of the back strap, I can easily do that to compensate. That looks better. That'll do. Okay, here's how this piece is looking, which is quite nice. And I don't know if you can see it, but like there's a little bit of puffing right there, and then there's a little bit of puffing right here, and just what that means is that this is just gonna have a slightly more natural silhouette, and I'm so excited. It's going to be very flattering. But now I need to put this piece away for a bit, and I need to work on this back piece. I was originally going to cut them out as 2 separate pieces, but I decided to try and just do them as one piece and then do the little historical 1/4 inch pleat, because you could tell that that's how the original was sewn. I'm going to try and do that, but I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to mark it. Probably the best way to do it would be to trim the seam allowance off of my pattern and then use the blue marker to trace it on the lining side and then like match it up like a dart, I guess. Yeah, let's try that. You know what? That was not as hard as I thought it would be, and I think it looks pretty good. Pretty smooth. So yeah, I'll do the same thing on the other side. They are ready to attach to the side back seams, and then I can attach the shoulder seams, and then this bodice will be basically done and ready to line. This is coming together fast. Okay, so I'm going to pause from work on this for a while to put together the lining pieces. They are going to be sewn exactly the same way except for 2 slight changes. I cut the center piece out on a fold because I don't need a seam here since I'm not boning the lining. And then I eliminated the little back tuck allowance in this back piece. It'll be the same, just slightly faster and simpler to put together. Okay, the lining is now put together, and I did have to go back and seam rip these out because I realized that I was too soon putting them together because of the way that I'm going to attach the lining and everything. But before I can attach the lining, I need to go and I need to sew my boning channels in this front. And I'm just going to do a simple running stitch because it's going to be visible front and center and I want it to not be machine sewn. So yeah. I gotta say, the only thing I'm a little disappointed in, because I used such a tight amount of fabric, I did not have the luxury of like choosing what parts of the pattern I wanted to show. So like none of the red roses are on the front, just like this little one right here. But everything else is blue and purple. And then this one is showing like 3 times. I'm just like, yeah, it's not bad, but could have been better. Okay, now to attach these layers, I'm going to be pinning all the way around it, and then I'm going to be sewing the entire bottom edge. I'm going to be leaving the backs open. I'm going to sew the entire front of the neckline, back of the neck, and then the underarms I'm going to sew, but I'm going to leave a few inches gap at each end, and then that will be useful when I'm turning it right side out and then stitching the back shoulder seams together. Okay, now it's all together, but here are a few things worth noting. I forgot that I was going to leave an opening here to insert the boning through, so I need to go and seam rip that out. I don't really love this shape. I prefer the like crisp, pointy peaks, but the original one has this shape, so I'm going with it, but I feel like mine turned out too wide. So I think I'm going to flip it around and I'm going to angle it in by maybe 1/4 of an inch right to the edge of my little running stitch on each side. So it will still have the same shape, it'll just be a lot more narrow and subtle. I accidentally sewed through that, need to correct that. And then I'm gonna have to do a ton of clipping and trimming of these seams before I can turn it all right side out. I think I ought to go ahead and remove all of my pad stitching and basting stitches before I turn it right side out. On just the lining layer, on opposite of these boning channels, I'm gonna do 2 tiny eyelets, which these will insert through later. What I need to do now is I need to insert the boning and then slip stitch this little opening shut. I think that I might go ahead and just do a lot of running stitch top stitching along the bottom edges and the neckline. I don't know, I really like running stitches like on the edges. It just, to me it looks nice and it does the job of flattening it and it doesn't take that long. And I'm going somewhere tonight, so maybe I could take it and work on it then. So if I can do all of that, I will be able to finish the bodice today, and then maybe tomorrow I can do the skirt and sleeves. Okay, so here's the thing. This little corner right here is where this was meant to line up, and these little dots is where that was meant to line up. And it might not make a big of a difference, but I don't know, because my whole method is don't try things on, just trust the pattern. So I'm thinking I'm going to take this back out, and then instead of trying to do this whole inverted thing, I'm probably just going to finish it straight, and then I can just stitch these together and then like just finish off fell down this little bit right here. So yeah. All right, let's see what I was able to finish last night. I did a running stitch along the entire bottom edge. And I don't know, I just really love running stitches. I just think they're pretty. I did running stitches along the back of the neckline, and then I did them along the front of the neckline. But then you can see down here, when it hit this point, I kind of widened this out, and then I tucked the cord, drawstring cord, real close against the seam, and then I basically made it into a channel. The shoulders are kind of a problem. The original method I tried didn't work. It's just too bulky of fabric. In the future, I'll probably try something else. Maybe I'll try just closing this off when I have it wrong side out and then leaving this as the opening. I'm just gonna have to make something up, and it's probably gonna be kind of messy on the inside, but I'm limited to how much I can care. I feel like my measurements are going to be slightly thrown off from the pattern. I would rather wait and finish off the shoulders after I have the zipper in, all of which means that I think it's time to start the skirt. Okay, yeah, no, yesterday I didn't really get to work on it much because I was busy in the morning, and then I had to teach lessons, and then I made my world building channel. The bodice is still in holding, no change. Sleeves I haven't started yet, although I have a plan, I think. And then, okay, the skirt, I got one of the pockets sewn, but I haven't serged it yet. And then this other pocket is ready to go. And it will have to be sewn in 3 parts. One little seam up here, one seam starting here and going all the way down to the bottom, and then one seam going around the pocket and then meeting right up with this edge. And then it will all need to be serged, and the skirt will be ready to pleat. Okay, the pockets are done in the skirt, and now it's time to attach it to the bodice. And I have an idea for how to do this without having to drape it, which is definitely the goal. Okay, so this is the waistline that I've marked right here, and then this 1/2 inch above it is for the seam allowance. So I'm going to start pleating my skirt directly to the bodice, lining up the edges with this edge right here, and then I will probably stitch both sides of that. We'll see. Okay, here's where we are now, and I realized that I kind of did this the dumb way. I should have pleated it to a tape instead so that I could just run that through the machine and have a really strong stitch, at least keeping the gathers tight together, and then I can whip stitch it to the dress, and I don't think I'll need to worry about it being strong as much if all of the pleats are attached to something else that's strong. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to very carefully go through, and one by one I'm going to transfer the pins to just the pleats and detach it from the bodice, and then retransfer them to a tape and stitch that. Okay, the skirt is all together and ready to reattach, and I went ahead and marked another line, making this 3/4 of an inch wide so that I can just line up the top edge of this 3/4 of an inch tape and not have to do any guesswork. Okay, skirt is attached, so like that, and it's all nice and finished off on the inside. I'll have to think about how I want to do this in the future because it worked well enough, but it was definitely time consuming. Had to be done by hand, both layers, and it just took way longer than I would like to spend in the future, so I will have to think about that. So next I need to put in the invisible zipper, which means that I need to serge this edge first and then get to work on that so that I can close up the back. And it will be basically in one piece. Okay, here's where we're at right now. The zipper has been hand basted into place, but I haven't actually stitched it in yet. I'm going to do that tomorrow because I don't feel like doing it. So I think that for the remainder of the time I work for this evening, I'm going to start on the sleeve. And for those of you who offered opinions on Instagram, I decided to go with a lace. And I have this in my stash, just a pretty cotton crochet lace. I think that will contrast really nicely. Okay, well that didn't take very long, only about an hour and a half. And yeah, okay, I'm gonna call it quits for the night, but everything is ready to go tomorrow and hopefully I can finish. Okay. This is ready to stitch in, so I'm going to do that by machine, and then I think I'm going to whip stitch the edge of the zipper down to the lining. Probably doesn't need to be done, but I want to. And then I can sew the bottom back of the skirt up, and then it will actually be ready to try on and adjust the shoulder straps. Okay, zipper is done and it's time for a real try-on. Okay, so everything is looking really good. It's always a little nerve-wracking when you go try something on for the first time and you don't do fittings and you're just kind of trusting in the pattern, but it fits, so that's good. So the gathering up the neckline, that seems to be working great. However, I might get it gathered to the point I like it and then tuck down and tack in place the drawstring because I don't want those to be showing. I think that I'm going to open up that little slip-stitched area and then remove the bones because I don't think they're really necessary to keep the shape, and I don't like how it's kind of sticking out. So yeah, the shoulders are not too tight, but they are about as tight as they can be, but again, I did lose a little bit in the front, so that kind of affected it. The back fits perfectly. Oh, the hem, I thought that I was going to have to level, but it looks like it's about right, so I think I'm just going to hem it as is because I don't want to have to wait until I can find somebody to help me level it. So yeah, we're down to just those little finishing details I told you about, and then the whole shoulders and arm's eye and sleeve area. And she's done, and it's only 10 p.m. I just finished a final ironing job, and then I went through and I wet down all of the blue markings, so it'll have to dry out overnight, and then tomorrow morning we'll see how we did. Okay, one little tiny detail. You see how it's kind of wrinkling up right there? It's not terrible, but I think I know how to fix it. Okay, so the boning I took out because it came up all the way, and so it was like sticking out straight. I think that if I trim that boning so that it stops right at the line of my stays, and then when I stitch it in, I add a little bit of a tack to keep it down, I think that that will help this stay nice and straight and smooth, but it won't interfere with the raised neckline. So to review the dress, I have a lot of thoughts, but let's just limit it to the most important things I noticed.
Thought number 1. The pattern is nearly perfect except at the shoulders and the sleeves. It feels very historical with the wide front and then the shoulders being drawn back. I wasn't able to recreate the sharp angles of the original, but that is probably mostly because I attached the seams with a completely modern sewing method. In the future, I don't think I'm even going to try to make those sharp angles. They are pretty, but I don't find them comfortable, and the patterning is much more difficult. Like my Outlander bodice, I want to give the shoulders a more modern, smooth curve and more symmetrical sleeves. Thought number 2. For the construction, I'm probably going to go back to adding seam allowances to my patterns. It just saves so much time. I've realized that tracing the seams and matching them up with pins is still good and probably the best if you are hand stitching the seams, because you need the traced line as a stitching guide. With a machine, you have a guide for even seams, so tracing seams in the historical manner doesn't really add any benefit. It was kind of like a sigh of relief to just go back to using a seam allowance. And thought number 3. Personally, I like sewing with modern inverted lining. It's much faster and it looks nice on the inside. But there is one major drawback. The best thing about flatlining the layers and felling the seams is how easy it makes it to open the seams and adjust the fit later. Inverting the lining like this makes it extremely difficult to alter the size. Now for me, this works. I don't like to go back and alter projects. Doing so allows me to nitpick, and it stops me from moving forward and trying new projects. I am most interested in the process of making the garment, the geometry, the craftsmanship, and the methodology. Once a piece is finished, getting to wear it is like a side benefit to me. It's not my main driving motivation, and that is probably different from most people's goals. So inverted linings work for me, but I still think taking the time to sew clothing with easy future alterations in mind will be a more advantageous strategy for plenty of people out there. My thing with modernizing historical fashion is I want to draw from all possible sewing methods, historical and modern, and choose what is best for me and my goals in any particular projects. What works best for me is not necessarily the objective best way to do a thing. You have to take your own needs into account when planning your sewing projects. So this is where I'll leave you. If you like what I do, feel free to subscribe. If you are into world building and fantasy, I now have a secondary channel, Mariah Patty World Building, which I invite you to investigate.